Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravata, and we are here again with another Real 50 Over 50 interview. And today I have a very, very special person to introduce you to. Her name is Kate Wells. She's a hormone expert and true biochem nerd who has been educating practitioners about hormones for many years. She started out as a high school science teacher and then pivoted to the business world. Kate knew that she wanted to combine her passions for science and business and found the perfect match in leadership roles at labs specializing in hormone testing and hormone formulation. She's the CEO and co-founder of Parlor Games LLC. She holds a BS, MBA, and has completed a fellowship in herbal medicine. Kate and her team at Parlor Games are on a mission to save the world one vagina at a time by continuing to educate women and health practitioners on the role of hormones in optimal longevity. By the numbers, Parlor Games in 4 years has 200,000 customers, 145 science-based blog posts, a sisterhood on Facebook, a private community for their customers called Sexy Sassy Sisterhood. And boy, people get into it on those in those conversations. I'm in there. And they are helping women, literally saving the world one vagina at a time. I can tell you for sure because Kate is my client. Parlor Games is my client. And I'm seeing this from the front side. I'm seeing it from the back side. And it's just incredible to watch what they're doing. So welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Donna. As always, it's a great day when I'm going to get to talk about hormones, but it's
Mhm.
even more special because of our connection. And I know how much you're helping me, you're helping our team, you're helping Paula Games, and by that flow, you are helping a lot of women. So thank you for your part in that, and for having me here today.
It is my deepest pleasure to be able to be part of this. So let's get into it. Let's talk hormones. Let's talk hormone health. Let's talk vaginal health. Let's talk vaginas. To all the owner operators out there, let's do it.
Right, right.
What is the thing that you want everybody to know? If you could scream it from the rooftops, let's start there.
If I could scream it from the rooftops, I would say women's health would be so much um, more um, in the mainstream if we were to pay more attention to hormones. Before menopause, it's about making sure that hormones are balanced because there are lots of fluctuations. And then after menopause, it's making sure that women have sufficient hormones. And currently, our medical model is not really set up to do that. And so, in consequence, women are really struggling. And what I want them to know is there is no need. There are lots of things that you can do, and hormones are a big part of resolving the nuttiness of menopause.
Okay, that is an important message. There is no need to struggle, right? So let's dive into um, self-education and self-advocating. So how can, you have you have so much content, and so
Mm.
much of it is really science-based and very easy to understand, easy to read. It doesn't get too deep into the weeds. Where should people start with what they need to learn?
Um, so with our blogs, that's a great resource there. Depending on what phase someone is, whether they are premenopause, so in their 20s and 30s, whether they're just beginning to tip into perimenopause, into their late 30s and into their 40s, or whether they're truly postmenopause, sort of 50 upwards. That can be 40 years worth. Uh, you can research through our blogs. But something I want to mention is hormones are tricky things. They are chemical messengers. They turn things on, they turn things off all over the body. And they when practitioners learn about hormones when they're in medical school, they don't spend a lot of time on this part of the body. They're taught some basics. But for a practitioner to really understand hormones, they really need to dig in, go to medical conferences, really focused on this, do reading really focused on this. And so for the average person who goes to their practitioner and says, "Hey, doc, this is nuts. I can't sleep. I'm sweating. I'm a raging idiot 1 minute and then I'm crying the next. I can't concentrate." All the symptoms we think, that we associate with menopausal changes. When they go to their doctor, they're looking at their doctor thinking, well, you've been to medical school, you know about this. And that's not true.
Mhm.
So a really small proportion of doctors really understand hormones and how they do a dance and how that dance changes. And so women do have to be an advocate for themselves. I think that's one of the things that's really important that women understand. And if they're met with like a blank stare from their practitioner, or, it's just part of getting old, or any kind of like whitewashing that practitioners seem to do these days, then they need to go off and find another practitioner. I mean, you've been in Sexy Sassy Sisterhood. Have you have seen the comments when someone has had a really negative experience from a practitioner and has not been supported, and how, oh my goodness, 100, 200 women in the group will reply like, get yourself a different practitioner, find someone who really does understand hormones. So there is that. So it's two parts. You are going to need to advocate for yourself and educate yourself, and please don't rely on your practitioner to know everything about hormones.
Yeah, and, I went to a gynecologist for years that was OB/GYN, and she just recently dropped the OB portion of her practice. And she told me that she realized she had so much to learn. She said, first of all, she was just getting too old to deal with the emergency calls to birth babies in the middle of the night. But
Mm.
she realized that she had so much to learn about, you know, post baby birthing years as far as
Mhm.
hormones went. And I'm really excited that she's kind of switched her practice because I love her. She's great. But
Mhm.
I don't think her having the focus on the OB portion of gynecology is helpful to women in our age group.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And I have been, I mean, I've been attending medical conferences for, I don't know, 20 plus years, more than that, and have been heartened to hear how many practitioners are really getting engaged to understand the complexity of hormones. And hormones, I mean, they have their own little circle of activity, but they interact with so many other messengers within the body. So it's good to see this surge of interest. And I will say, obviously we had the Women's Health Institute, um, Women's Health Initiative study that was ended in 2002, and it had this false message that estrogen causes cancer. That is not the case at all. But the media got hold of an interpretation from that study and just ran with it. And in consequence, um, women and their practitioners were really discouraged from using hormone replacement. Now, that was the synthetic stuff made by, pharmaceutical companies that doesn't have the same structure as the hormones that we make in the body. And so, we do want to be wise about choosing that over what's called bioidentical hormones. But that message of, if you must use hormones, get off them as quickly as possible, really anchored itself in practitioners' minds. And that has shifted. And it's been shifting over the 20 years since that result came out. And it is exciting to see more practitioners being more engaged, looking into the science, looking into the research that actually says, well, progesterone's actually extremely protective against breast cancer, for example, and estrogen may in fact protect in certain breast cancer instances. Testosterone is important for our brains, for our bones, for our energy. and so on and so on. So it's really good that practitioners like yours are saying, hey, hang on, let's do this a little differently.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited to hear that.
Yeah, yeah, and it made me very happy, and I'm in, like, local Facebook groups in my community, and it was like a giant sigh of relief in there.
Mhm,
But you in your last response, you started to talk about the different types of hormones, and
mhm.
there are 5 key hormones that shift during the stages of menopause. Can we talk a little bit about those and the
Yeah,
different types of symptoms that can come from that, that maybe we don't even think this is menopause, like, we just think it's something else entirely.
yeah.
Roll into that, the things that kind of go unnoticed or
Mhm.
or, like, we don't naturally think that this is part of menopause, that we think it's
Yeah,
something else entirely. Because I think that would be really helpful for a lot of people.
right. Well, we can take a little step back from that and say there are lots of different categories of hormones in the body. Insulin, for example, is a hormone. What I'll focus on, just because it's such a big topic, is some adrenal hormones, so hormones that come from the adrenal gland, and what's
Mhm,
called our sex hormones, so estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, for example. So, one of our foundation hormones is cortisol, and we've all heard of cortisol because we know it's related to our stress response, and it's made by the adrenal gland. And this is important for lots of metabolic processes in the body. It rises in the morning, so it sort of gets us ready to face the day. It kickstarts our digestion. It kickstarts our cardio metabolic processes. Picks up our blood pressure so that our heart can pump blood around the body, which we're going to need when we get out of bed. Otherwise, we'll fall over on the floor. Um, so it's important for, you know, being able to jump out of the way of an oncoming car. So it is part of our stress response. And what can happen over time, particularly when we get into our late 30s and into our 40s, women are often juggling many things, work, a family, a household, perhaps parents or family members, just also all the things that we end up doing. And over time, this can diminish our cortisol levels because it puts too much of a drain on the adrenal gland. So, managing stress is critically important. Far easier said than done, of course, as
well,
it's
there's
taking
always
taking
something,
me
right?
20 years to finish that one. Um, but cortisol is there. It's kind of one of our hormones that we just rely on to be working well. And then there's another hormone that comes from the adrenal gland, and that is called DHEA or dihydroepiandrosterone. And this is kind of overall wellness hormone. It has many neuroactive functions so that it really protects our brain. It allows our brain to function. Um, it allows us to generally feel well. The other important thing about DHEA is that it is one of our primary hormones from which the other sex hormones flow. So DHEA is metabolized into testosterone, and then testosterone is metabolized in a number of directions. The primary one we'll mention is into estradiol, which is the strongest form of estrogen. And then that estrogen is metabolized into both the other two hormones, estrone and estriol. So it's kind of a little waterfall effect there from DHEA to testosterone to estradiol and so on. Then the other major hormone that we make is progesterone. And the big surge of progesterone is made when we ovulate. Every month, a little egg makes it to maturity and is spat out of the ovary, carries along the fallopian tube on its way to the uterus. Now, around that egg is a sac called the corpus luteum, and in that sac is the progesterone. Now, that's fantastic when the cycles are working great. Ovulate, egg, there's the progesterone. And progesterone is a natural balancer to our estrogen. So we have to have them. They're like two sides of a teeter totter. And you need them both. It's not like, well, we'll just take one out, we'll take the other out. Well, no, that's not a teeter-totter. That's just a plank on the ground. That's not much fun. You're not getting anywhere with that. You need both of them and they need to balance. Now, what happens as we begin to get older and get into perimenopause? We still have our cycles, but we're not ovulating every month. Now, if we're not ovulating every month, we are not getting that surge of progesterone. We've still got estrogen, but it's not balanced by the teeter-totter. So think about that teeter-totter. Whoa, it's going up on the estrogen side. And estrogen is a hormone that makes things grow. It can make the uterine lining grow. It can make breast tissue grow. I mean, it does all sorts of good things. It is a growth hormone. But when it's not balanced by progesterone, that's when you start to get kind of sense of bloating because the uterine lining just keeps growing. There's no message from progesterone to say, whoa, stop, 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 stop. And it can make breasts tender for that same reason. Those are two of the really early symptoms that we see when women are starting to get into perimenopause. So, maybe next month there is ovulation, there is progesterone, life is good. But over time, through our early 40s into mid 40s, and definitely into our late 40s, we're not ovulating every month. And sometimes the gap between months when we do ovulate gets longer and longer. We still have our cycles, but they may be getting heavier because estrogen is growing that uterine lining unbalanced by progesterone. Sometimes they get shorter and closer together. And it's because of this imbalance between the two. And sometimes this term is known as estrogen dominance. Really, what it is progesterone deficiency. We're still making the right amount of estrogen, but it's not being balanced by progesterone. And that's when a lot of those really early irritating symptoms come. And that's because progesterone is important not just for managing uterus activities, but it's important for our brains. We need progesterone to help us sleep well. We need it to help us monitor and manage our moods. And, I mentioned earlier that, the nuttiness of being um, furious one moment and sitting in a corner sobbing the next. Oftentimes, a lot of that is to do with the lack of progesterone. So this dance between estrogen and progesterone is super important during perimenopause.
We actually
Uh,
have a question.
mhm.
Bonnie is asking, do women need progesterone if we're in perimenopause and trying to get pregnant?
Um, it's always going to be a good conversation to have with your practitioner. And yes, many women who are struggling to conceive or perhaps they conceive, but then there's no implantation of the ovum, the fertilized ovum. That could be due to lack of progesterone. And so having that conversation with a practitioner about whether some bioidentical hormone would help regulate the uterine lining and help it be more stable is definitely something to think about.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you for asking, Bonnie. I'm sure that will help you and possibly others too. Um, okay, so let's keep going on your hormone conversation.
Yeah. So the other hormone that I'll just mention briefly is testosterone. It is important for libido, very much so. Um, it's also important for a lot of our brain activities, for forming memories, for just holding ideas in mind, for being able to build a picture of something. If you're, trying to organize something at work, you need your brain to be able to organize information. And so testosterone, along with estrogen and progesterone, contribute to that ability. Um, it's important for muscle building. And as we get older and postmenopausal, when we lose estrogen, our bones risk becoming a little more brittle. And so having a strong network of muscles all over our body is super important for balance. It's part of that whole picture of supporting joints, making sure we don't fall over, um, as well as, using other hormones to supplement to make sure our bones can stay strong. So I'm talking a little bit here kind of about perimenopause, but really where the shit hits the fan is postmenopause.
Mhm.
And that's oftentimes when all our hormones are diminishing. We're not ovulating, so we're not making our progesterone. Um, our cortisol levels, if we're in a particularly stressful environment, those are low. Our adrenal gland is exhausted. And it's supposed to be kind of the backup mechanism for making our sex hormones, testosterone, estradiol, and progesterone. But if the adrenal gland has been too stressed, and overused, it is not focused on making the sex hormones. So that backup system for many women has gone away. But really, where we begin to feel estrogens, the lack of estrogen effect, and this is what brought Parlor Games into being, was in vaginal health. Estrogen is so very important for the health of the skin on the inside of the vagina. We don't tend to think about the vagina being a layer of skin in there, but it is just like the skin on our arm, the skin on our neck, the skin on our legs. And skin is critical as a barrier to keep pathogens out. We also don't think about there being a tiny layer of skin, a thin layer of skin on the inside of the urethra, which is the tube that goes from the bladder to the outside world. And estrogen is important for that skin too. And so as estrogen levels are dropping, we find that begins to be an increase in dryness in the vagina because that skin is losing its integrity. You can kind of get little micro tears in there. The skin isn't making the lubrication that it used to. And on the inside of the urethra, you can also get irritation in there as well without estrogen. And that's when women begin to get repeat UTIs, interstitial cystitis, that irritation that just seems always there, that increased urgency. So there's a collection of symptoms that practitioners will call genitourinary that are strongly tied to the lack of estrogen. Um, and again, that's why Parlor Games came into being. We wanted to provide a resource for women who were experiencing painful sex, experiencing this dry vagina and irritation, itching that just won't stop. And increased UTIs and incontinence. And our Silky Peach Estriol Cream is all for that. It it it's why we are.
Yeah, and I can tell you it works. Um, so the products that you have, it's the Silky Peach Cream, and then you've got some others too. And I just before you start in, I have a couple that I've tried, and this one is called the More Wow 5-in-1 Face Cream. I
Mhm,
literally want to put my entire body in a 55-gallon drum of this. I used it maybe twice, and I could feel a difference on my skin.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. We're not in this to have like a whole product line.
Mhm,
That's not why Parlor Games exists. We're interested in helping women resolve issues that they're dealing with. And I'll go back to that skin layer again. The skin is so important. It's a big organ, covers our entire body, including in all our orifices, as I just mentioned. And
mhm.
making sure that the skin it is strong and supple is so important for keeping pathogens out. And if you don't do that, then you start getting little patches of low grade inflammation. And I have to tell you, it's kind of hard to imagine the impact that lots of areas of inflammation can have, but it's about um, elevating the body, it's part of the body's kind of stress and immune response. If you've got lots of bits of inflammation going on everywhere, the body has to work so much harder to handle that inflammation. And inflammation, consistent, that doesn't go away, is kind of at the root of many diseases, metabolic diseases like Alzheimer's, like gingivitis in your gums, like even diabetes and insulin resistance. So keeping inflammation to a minimum is important, and a big part of that is maintaining your skin barrier so it's healthy.
And I am sure most people don't even consider that. And
Right.
I mean, our skin changes as we age, and I mean, what we're told is, you're getting older, deal with it. And I really, I feel like the work that you do through your content, through your products, through your mission is to help women realize they don't have to accept that as an answer.
Right. Right. Very much so. If I can just illustrate another thing here about wrinkly skin. We see it on our hands. We see it start to appear on our necks. I'm 62, so the signs are there. We don't tend to think about the skin of our vagina and our vulva getting wrinkly, but
Mhm.
it does. And unless you're out there with a mirror checking this every day to see if you're getting all wrinkly, you just don't think about it. But it does. And as that skin gets more wrinkly, I mean, you increase your risk of like E. coli just moving around that area. Think about our exits. They're all co-located. There's the anus, there's the vagina, and there's the urethra.
Mhm.
Um, they're all so close together. I mean, what was evolution thinking? I don't know. We should have had a different method for this, but this is the reality. And so, with wrinkly skin, it's so much easier for E. coli from the anus to get moved around that area. And so, again, maintaining the plumpness of that skin, as well as, probably increased regular hygiene, can go a long way to making sure that area of your body is going to be less likely to get inflamed and infected.
Yeah, this is this is so valuable because it is, um, it's backed by science, but you're making it very easy to understand and easy to kind of make some changes in the way that you manage your own body, where we can go on. I mean, like, I've spent some time in that Sexy Sassy Sisterhood Facebook group, and there are women in there into their 70s and even
Mhm.
older that are saying how they had a sex life now that they have not had in a very long time.
Right,
I mean,
right. There are
that's
many
an impact.
women, it's like 10 years, 15 years, 17. I mean, we even had one the other day, 25 years. 25
Mhm.
years because her vagina hurt too much. It was just too painful. She didn't have any estrogen, and just that little bit of estriol. I mean, you've got to use it on a regular basis. It's like a reservoir. You've got to rebuild the reservoir of estrogen in your skin so that your skin cells can do what they need to do. But it's just fantastic.
I
It's
mean,
they can have this
yeah,
fun part of their lives back again.
and I mean, they have 50,000 people that are on subscription for these products. That is a testament
Yeah.
that it works. And I mean,
Hmm.
and not all of those people are in the Facebook community. There's about 35,000 in there, and it is active. I'll never forget the first time I went in there. I just opened it up, and the first post I saw, I mean, I don't blush easy. I blushed.
You know what this community gives is a space for women to ask the most intimate
Yeah,
questions, to share their most intimate experiences, some of which, are heartbreaking, some of which are funny. Um, but it's a safe space.
yeah, it
No
really is.
one is judged. Everyone is supported. And I have to tell you, Don, I mean, this was a brainchild of my business partner, Kirsti Hegg. Um, I am too often a scientist with my, my head buried in research articles and literature. And she knew that women needed a community about this. And so that is her idea. And oh my goodness, she was so right, because women feel safe and they feel heard and they feel nurtured, and women have done that from time immemorial. And I'm just, I feel so happy that they have this resource.
And I mean, I've been in the back end of quite a few businesses over the years, and I am just so in awe of what you're creating, how you're creating it, what you've done in 4 years. It's only been 4 years. And, can you tell a little bit of the backstory of how Parlor Games created and a little bit about who Kirsty is and how you work
Hmm.
with the team? Because it's really special. It's not your regular business operation.
Hmm. Well, Kirsti is my best friend. We met when our daughters were in preschool when they were 3 years old. They're now 30, and we have been fast friends through all that time. And I have had a long career, as you mentioned, in the integrated medicine field, in hormones. And I have a practitioner line of hormones. And Kirsty came to me probably about 6 years ago and said, "Hey, hey, sex hurts. Do you have a solution?" I mean, it took a couple of glasses of wine before that came out, but that's essentially what she was saying. And I said, "Oh, yes, I have the hormone for you. Stick with me, and you will never go dry again." Um, and within 2 weeks, I gave her some estriol cream, and within 2 weeks, she was back on the phone, like, "Oh my God, we just had sex last night. It didn't hurt." I mean, she was so happy about this. And I have been to so many events, and I really knew that women did not understand that there was a solution for this. I mean, I've talked to so many women. And so she's a serial entrepreneur. I'm a long-term businesswoman. Um, and I mean, we've got 60 years of business experience between us. So I eventually persuaded her that we should start something. We should do something. We should bring this to women because they need it. Um, and we divided up our responsibilities early. She's brilliant at marketing, absolutely brilliant, and drives that side of the business. We both understand finance. It's good. I do a lot of the business management, and they're talking about hormones. So we divided it up, and I think that has been the key to our success. We don't get in each other's nonsense.
Mhm,
We have good boundaries. We trust each other, and I think because we have been friends for such a long time, that and have a respect for each other's knowledge base, that I think that's somewhat unique. And we made a commitment really early on that nothing would get in the way of our friendship.
mhm,
Um, and we've both done our own work, in terms of emotional intelligence, so that if we are nearing a place where we're just like coming adrift, we're like, "Oh, time out, time out, time out. What's going on? What's real for you? What's real for me? What are the stories?" And we find our way back in really quickly before there's a gap. So we're committed to that. And um, but but we just we just thought we'd try it. We did some testing on Facebook. Some simple ads. What do women respond to? We created some, early content. We did a whole bunch of writing, um, and we got the message out. We never said, "Oh, we want to be this massive empire." Our mission, which drives everything, is saving the world one vagina at a time. So everything is about that. And yes, we have grown. And I will tell you, Donna, I, 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 I am gobsmacked, clearly, about the women that are on our team. Our team members are so smart. They are so committed. They're so knowledgeable. They are kind. They are thoughtful. We are so blessed by the women who have found us when we were hiring. Um, and as our infrastructure builds out, everyone learns really early on and maintains, like, we are here to help women. That's what we're here for. And I think that has been a part of our success. that drive there.
Yeah. It's clear with everything that you do that it's not about you. It's about helping others, and
Mhm.
it's about really making an impact, um, and I think that you provide a product and a service um, and more than that, and fill a gap in a way differently than other similar companies do. Because it feels like you're being welcomed into a family.
You say that. We had we had a message the other day that said, "Dear Kate and family." And so you've nailed it.
Yeah,
It does feel like that, and not just to our team, but I think to our customers.
yeah,
They it really is a big family community. That's what we want.
yeah,
So,
it really does, and I mean, I have looked at everything that you do objectively as a fly on the wall from every perspective, and that's what it comes back to. It comes back to you're invited to have a seat at our table, and you're invited to come back again, and, I think that just reflects in your numbers.
mhm. It it's sometimes no, let me rephrase that. This frequently starts to take me out of my comfort zone. I mentioned I'm happy with my head in a
Mhm.
pile of research articles going, ooh, biochemistry, biochemistry. But I'm aware and stepping into just with the confidence that the way will open up, that
Mhm,
um part of our work is me engaging in conversations, is sharing ideas, is presenting in a way that people can go, oh, I get it. That makes sense. Finally. Um, and it does take courage for me to put myself in the limelight so much. And yet, Donna, I can't tell you what an incredible feeling it is to know that I am doing the work that I am meant to do. When I look back through my history of my career, the time you don't really know, I didn't know what it was leading to. There's a stepping stone here, maybe sideways to a stepping stone over there, and then a jig left to another stepping stone. You're like, whoa, I'm just going to leap and hope. But
mhm,
in some ways, it's been focused in getting to this point where I've acquired all this knowledge, I've acquired this business experience, I've acquired, the spiritual and emotional intelligence to hold me through all of this and stay steady most of the time. And um, so that we can do what we're here to do. And it's such an honor to to live a life where I'm living my mission.
mhm. Yeah, and you are, and, visibility is scary, particularly when you're the one that's used to being, like, behind the books, um, but I don't view you as building this platform to be a celebrity.
Mm, mm,
It's about helping, it's about
mhm,
mission, legacy, it's
mhm,
about helping future generations by arming women with the information that they need, that they can use it for their own lives and pass it on.
mhm,
That it will inspire people to go into fields that they never considered before because they didn't know it was a field.
mhm,
There's just so many different facets to this, and I just think you're just getting started, and the
mhm.
possibilities that are out there for you as an individual, for Parlor Games as a company, and for everybody that you serve are truly endless. I
Yeah,
mean, not to
I
sound a
think so.
little gooey, but but I that's
Oh,
really
not
how I
really. Yeah, but you know what? I'm a huge believer in women's ability to advocate for other women,
Yeah.
to advocate for themselves, to collectively work for something bigger, much bigger than the ego, but for creative collective good. I think, women have always done that. Women have always helped themselves, helped each other,
Yes.
collectively, and this is just women doing that.
Yeah. And right now, at this time in our world history, it's a requirement.
Hmm.
It's not an
Yeah.
option anymore.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
on that note, I like to end these with a wisdom bomb. So, something actionable that people could take with them, even though you've just given a solid 40 minutes of wisdom.
Um, well, on top of the, yes, hormones will really help you go research them. I want women to feel empowered to be their best selves. You don't have to give in and give up just because you're getting older or because you have more years under your belt. Those years under your belt are about becoming wiser and stronger. And I, when you have enough of the right hormones, there is no stopping you. And I want women to feel empowered to bring their wisdom, to bring their kindness, to bring their good hearts, to whatever is meaningful for them, whether that's family, whether it's community, whether it's a new business, whether it's volunteer. I don't know, but do not diminish yourself. Allow that greatness within you because it is there.
Beautiful. So, balance your hormones, balance your life.
Yep.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Kate. Thank you for sharing so much. You could reach Kate at parlor-games.com. She's also available on the Real 50 Over 50 website. And she was in our wisdom panel a couple of months ago on menopause. So you could find her there too. And keep an eye out because they're doing amazing things. And we will be back next week with another interview. So thank you and have a great Wednesday, everybody. Thank you, Kate.
Thank
And
you, Donna.
we'll be back.
Thank you. Bye.